So here we have the heart, and coming out of it is the precava. The first thing to enter the precava, almost immediately, is this vein here, the azygos, which you see on the right side of the cat only. Zygous means, I think, paired symmetry, so azygous means there's no paired symmetry, there's just one of them. So this is not the post-cava. This is the azygous vein that enters the precava right before it dumps into the right atrium. And it receives a bunch of veins from the ribs, so it's the costal veins. The costal arteries, of course, are coming off the aorta, which you can't quite see here, but is back over there. So that's the azygous vein. Now, here's the precava. Coming off of it is a single internal thoracic that went up to the sternum, like that. Then the precava splits into a right and left brachiocephalic, and the brachiocephalic gives off an internal jugular, the little guy, a big external jugular, and a subclavian, which really just about instantly becomes the axillary. After that, the axillary gives off, well, I'm not going to do any more veins because now the veins have the same names as the arteries.
Wait, which one's the axillary?
Well, the axillary, this would really be the axillary about up till somewhere around here. By the time it's down here, it's definitely the brachial. So in this region, it'd be the axillary.
So they're the same, it's just we're talking about the region of it.
Yeah. Subclavian turns into axillary, turns into brachial.
Okay.
Just like certain Philadelphia streets turn from one thing into another.
So subclavian, sorry, and
Well,
then
let's see.
axillary, and then brachial.
Precava, brachiocephalic, subclavian, it's almost instantly the axillary. So axillary to maybe where the subscapular comes off, and then brachial.
Okay.
Now, arteries. I'm going to do a lot more arteries, and they're going to include things that have a vein paired with them, and the vein has the same name. So aortic arch gives off first this big brachiocephalic. The brachiocephalic then splits into three things. A right subclavian, which goes this way, a right common carotid, which goes here, a left common carotid, which goes there. So those three branching from the brachiocephalic, whereas the left subclavian comes off the aortic arch on its own. Now, both subclavians do this thing where 5 branches are going to come off. I will show you on the left side. Going ventrally, there's a branch to the sternum called the internal thoracic. So that matches this single internal thoracic vein that came off earlier, like that. So this is the internal thoracic. Opposite the internal thoracic, more or less, is a vertebral that goes down and is going to go through the transverse processes of the cervical vertebrae all the way to the head. And then next to it is a costocervical. Now, that in some cats, in this cat, there's a nice common trunk, the costocervical trunk. In some other cats, the two parts of it are going to come right off the artery, and you won't have this little Y. But that little Y is a giveaway for the costocervical. I should make people in the future learn that this branch is the costal going back to the ribs, and this branch is the cervical going forward, because then the name would make sense. But you don't have to know that this is the cervical and that's the costal. You just have to know that this is the costocervical, right there. A little later, this thyrocervical comes off and parallels the external jugular, like that. Once the thyrocervical comes off, you can now call this the axillary. So, left subclavian, left internal thoracic artery, left vertebral artery, left costocervical artery, left thyrocervical artery, left axillary artery. Now, the axillary gives off several things. It gives off this ventral thoracic artery going to, you could call it the pec major. It's going to here. It's going to the pec major right there. So that's the ventral thoracic. It also gives off a long thoracic, which is broken, but went back here, somewhere back here along the side. Then continues on and gives off a subscapular that goes deep into the scapula like that. And after it gives off the subscapular, right, these white things are all nerves. We're going to learn them in the next unit. After it gives off this subscapular here going deep, it now can be called the brachial. And the brachial goes down in the arm. Now, I'm going to switch to the other side and show you the same things. Here we have the right subclavian. Here's the internal thoracic. Here's the thyrocervical. Now, somewhere in, here's the thyrocervical. This, therefore, must be the costocervical. And somewhere in there is a vertebral that I'm not seeing too well. I think it's, there it is. So there's the vertebral. Now notice they're a little more scrunched together on this side. Vertebral here, thyrocervical here, costocervical there, internal thoracic here. Over here they're a little more spread out. Vertebral, costocervical, thyrocervical. But on this side we have vertebral deep way in there, costocervical there, thyrocervical. But I can tell what they are from where they're going and the fact this does a Y. So now it's the axillary and it goes down here, branch giving off a ventral thoracic, which went toward the midline. Ventral thoracic, there's your long thoracic. See it going all the way back?
What's that called?
Long thoracic. And it's going way back, all the way back here. Then as the axillary goes along, it gives off this pretty big vessel right here going deep to the scapula. So that's the subscapular right there. And then it continues on as the brachial all the way down here, down, 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 till it finally splits into a radial and an ulnar. There. I think that's everything.
What was